Elena Vasquez sat in the cold metal chair and watched the aliens argue about her species. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with 12 different seats for 12 different alien races. Each seat was built for a different type of body. Some aliens were tall and thin, others were short and wide. One race looked like walking crystals, and another looked like giant insects. Elena was the only human in the room. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on her shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her face showed no emotion as the aliens talked about humans like they were children. The Zephyrian delegate spoke first. He was tall and green with 4 arms and no nose. When he talked, his voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. The humans have only been in space for 300 years, he said. Their ships use old fusion engines. They still fight wars with explosive weapons. How can we let them join our council? The crystalline, being called Veltar, made a sound like breaking glass. This was how her people laughed. I have seen their largest warship, she said. It is smaller than our cargo vessels. They call it a dreadnought. But it could not fight even our oldest ships. Elena kept her face calm. But inside she felt angry. These aliens had been watching humans for decades. They knew about Earth's wars, about the slow journey to the stars, about the struggles to build colonies on Mars and Europa. But they did not know everything. Thrixak was the most dangerous alien in the room. He belonged to the hegemony, a group of insect-like creatures who ruled over 50 worlds. His black shell gleamed under the lights, and his 6 arms moved as he spoke. The humans are not ready for membership, he said in his clicking voice. They should be placed under hegemony protection. We will guide them, teach them, help them grow. In a few thousand years, perhaps they will be ready. Elena knew what hegemony protection meant. It meant slavery with a nice name. Humans would mine metals for the hegemony and grow food for their worlds. Human scientists would work in hegemony labs, and human soldiers would fight in hegemony wars. All for the good of humanity, of course. The debate went on for 2 hours. Some aliens spoke for humanity. The Kelari, who looked like tall blue cats, said humans had shown courage in their exploration of space. The Wanderer race, beings made of living metal, pointed out that humans had survived wars that would have destroyed other species, but most of the council was against human membership. They called humans too young, too violent, too primitive. They said humanity needed more time to develop, to learn, to become civilized. Finally, the vote came. 8 races voted against humanity. 4 voted in favor. Elena had expected this result, but it still hurt to hear it said out loud. The council speaker, a floating jellyfish-like creature, announced the decision. The Galactic Council has decided that humanity is not ready for membership. The species will be placed under hegemony guidance and protection until such time as they have developed sufficient civilization. Elena stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the room turned to look at her. Some looked sorry for her. Others looked pleased. Thrixak's insect face showed something that might have been a smile. I understand your decision, Elena said. Her voice was calm and quiet, but it carried to every corner of the huge chamber. Perhaps it is time you understood ours. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like an old Earth compass, with a metal case and strange symbols carved into its surface. The symbols were not from any human language the aliens knew about. Elena held the device up and pressed a button in its center. Nothing seemed to happen. The device did not beep or flash lights. It did not send out any signal that the alien sensors could detect. But something had changed. Elena could feel it. What is that? Asked Veltar, her crystal body changing color from blue to red. This was a sign of alarm among her people. A key, Elena said simply. A key to what? Thrixak demanded. His voice was sharper now, more worried. Elena looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. Some were curious, others were afraid. All of them were about to learn that they had made a very big mistake. You think humans are young because you first met us 300 years ago, Elena said. You think our technology is primitive because our ships use fusion engines. You think we are weak because we fight wars on one small planet. She paused and looked directly at Thrixak. "You are wrong about all of these things." The device in her hand began to glow with a soft blue light. Deep in space, far from any star, ancient machines that had slept for 50,000 years began to wake up. "You see, we are not the first humans to reach for the stars," Elena continued. "We are just the children of the ones who came back home." The aliens began to talk all at once. Their voices filled the chamber with sounds like breaking glass, clicking insects, and howling wind. But Elena was not finished speaking. "Our ancestors built ships before your civilizations learned to make fire," she said. "They mapped the galaxy before your oldest legends began. They fought wars among the stars when your worlds were still covered in ice." Thrixak stood up from his chair, his 6 arms spreading wide in a threat display. "This is impossible. Our records go back 20,000 years. We would know of such a civilization." Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a kind smile. "You would know," she agreed. "If they had wanted you to know." In the darkness between stars, massive shapes began to move toward the light. Far from Earth, in the cold darkness where no sun shone, something ancient stirred. The signal from Elena's device had traveled faster than light, faster than thought, reaching places that most beings believed were empty space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. The room around her was filled with screens and computers, but they looked different from normal human technology. The metal was too smooth, the lights too bright, and the symbols on the screens were not in any language most humans could read. Sarah was one of only 12 humans who knew the truth. She was 70 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes, but her hands did not shake as she pressed buttons on the control panel. She had been waiting for this day her entire life. Her grandfather had waited for it. His grandfather before him had waited too. "Watcher command, this is Admiral Chen," she said into her headset. "Confirm signal received. Begin awakening sequence." The screens around her came alive with information. Points of light appeared throughout the galaxy, each one marking the location of something that had been hidden for thousands of years. In the Oort cloud, beyond the orbit of Pluto, massive structures began to power up. They had been drifting in the dark for so long that ice and space dust covered their surfaces like blankets. But now, heat flowed through their metal bodies, and ancient engines hummed back to life. These were the Watchers, ships built by the first human civilization, back when the current human race was still learning to use stone tools. The largest Watcher was 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Its hull was made from materials that could bend light and gravity. Weapons that could crack planets lined its sides, but they had never been fired in anger. The Watchers were not built for conquest. They were built to protect. Sarah watched the screens as one by one, the Watchers reported their status. Watcher 7 online, all systems functional. Watcher 12 online, weapons ready. Watcher 3 online, stealth systems active. As each ship came online, Sarah remembered the stories her grandfather had told her. Stories that most people thought were just family legends, but which she now knew were history. Long ago, before ice covered most of Earth, the first humans had built a great civilization. They had ships that could travel between stars in days, cities that floated in the clouds, and machines that could think like people. They explored the galaxy and found it full of life. But that life was young and weak. The first humans could have ruled the galaxy. They had the power to conquer every world, to make every alien race serve them. But they chose not to. Instead, they decided to watch and protect, to help young races grow without taking away their freedom. For thousands of years, the first human empire guided the galaxy in secret. They stopped asteroid impacts that would have killed entire species. They prevented wars between young civilizations. They seeded empty worlds with life and watched it grow. But then something went wrong. Sarah's grandfather had never been clear about what exactly happened. Some kind of disaster, or maybe a war with something from outside the galaxy. The first humans had been forced to make a choice. They could try to save their empire and risk destroying everything they had protected, or they could sacrifice themselves to keep the galaxy safe. They chose sacrifice. Most of the first humans went into deep sleep in ships hidden throughout the galaxy. Others stayed awake to help Earth rebuild after the disaster. They spread across the planet, becoming the ancestors of the modern human race. They left behind only stories and legends, and 12 families who would remember the truth. Sarah's family was one of those 12. Now, as the Watchers came online one by one, Sarah felt the weight of 50,000 years of history. Her people had slept while new civilizations rose and fell. They had watched from the darkness as younger races explored the stars that humans had mapped long ago. The aliens thought they were the elders of the galaxy. They had no idea that humanity had been their silent guardian since before their oldest legends began. "Admiral," came a voice from one of the screens. It was Captain Reeves, stationed on the hidden base in the asteroid belt. Long-range sensors are picking up massive gravitational disturbances throughout the galaxy. The alien fleets are starting to move. They know something is happening. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The Watchers were too big to hide once they started moving. Each ship displaced as much space as a small moon. Their gravity fields would be visible to any civilization with decent sensors. "What about the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Panic," Reeves replied. "They're trying to figure out what those readings mean. Some of them think it's a natural phenomenon. Others suspect it's some kind of weapon test." Sarah almost smiled. If only they knew how right they were about it being weapons. But these weapons had been pointed at threats to the galaxy, not at the galaxy itself. "Admiral, we're getting a communication from Watcher 1, said another technician. "The eldest is requesting permission to speak with you." The eldest. Sarah had heard stories about him since she was a child. The first human to volunteer for the long sleep. The commander of the Watcher fleet. He had been awake for less than 100 years out of the last 50,000. "Put him through," Sarah said. The main screen flickered, and a man's face appeared. He looked young, maybe 30 years old, but his eyes were ancient. He had brown hair and dark skin, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons. "Admiral Chen," he said. "It has been a long time since we spoke to our cousins on Earth. How fares the homeworld?" "One. We survived," Sarah said simply. "We grew. We reached for the stars again. And now the young races threaten our children," the eldest said. His face was calm, but Sarah could hear the anger beneath his words. "This cannot be allowed. The Council voted to place humanity under alien protection," Sarah explained. "They think we're too primitive to be independent." The eldest was quiet for a long moment. Around the galaxy, his fellow Watchers waited for his orders. "Then perhaps," he said finally, "it is time to remind the galaxy who the true elders are." Fleet Commander Zach Thule had seen many things in his 40 years of service to the hegemony. He had commanded ships in the border wars, fought pirates in the void reaches, and conquered 3 primitive worlds for the glory of his people. But he had never seen anything like the readings on his screens. "Commander," said his science officer, a young insectoid with nervous clicking sounds in his voice. "The gravitational disturbance is getting stronger. It's massive, sir, as large as a small moon." Zach Thule studied the sensor data with his compound eyes. His flagship, the Times Death's Edge Asterisk, was the most powerful warship in the hegemony fleet. It carried enough firepower to level a planet, and its armor could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Around him, 50 other hegemony ships waited for his orders. They had been sent to investigate the strange readings near their capital system. High Command wanted to know what was causing the disturbances. Some scientists thought it might be a new type of star formation. Others worried it could be a weapon test by one of their enemies. None of them had guessed the truth. "Contact!" shouted the sensor operator. "Something is decloaking directly ahead of us." The main screen lit up with an image that made Zach Thule's mandibles click in shock. Where empty space had been moments before, a ship now hung in the darkness. But calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a rock. The vessel was enormous beyond imagination. It stretched 10 kilometers from nose to tail, and its hull gleamed with a metal that seemed to absorb starlight. Strange symbols covered its surface, written in a language that hurt to look at. The ship's design was unlike anything in the hegemony database. It had smooth curves instead of sharp edges, and it moved through space without any visible engines. "By the ancient queens," whispered Zakthul. "What is that thing?" His communications officer's voice cracked with fear. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission." "Audio only. Put it through," Zakthul ordered. A voice filled the bridge of the Times Death's Edge asterisk. It spoke in perfect hegemony language, but with an accent that sounded older than their oldest historical records. "Hegemony vessel, this is the Watcher ship Times Eternal Vigil asterisk. You are in violation of protected space. Withdraw immediately." Zakthul felt his battle instincts take over. No one gave orders to the hegemony fleet. "Unknown vessel, this is Fleet Commander Zakthul of the Hegemony Navy. You are in hegemony space. Identify yourself and prepare to be boarded." There was a pause. When the voice came again, it sounded almost sad. "Fleet Commander, your species has existed for 23,000 years. In that time, you have built a great civilization. Do not let pride destroy what your ancestors worked so hard to create." Zakthul's anger flared. "Are you threatening the hegemony?" "No," the voice replied. "We are trying to save it." The fleet commander had heard enough. This unknown ship, no matter how large, was alone against 50 hegemony warships. The outcome was obvious. "All ships, target the alien vessel," he commanded. "Prepare to fire on my mark. Let's show these strangers what happens when they threaten the hegemony." The hegemony fleet spread out into attack formation. Particle beam weapons powered up, and quantum torpedoes loaded into firing tubes. Each ship in the fleet carried enough destructive power to crack a moon. Together, they could have destroyed a small planet. "All ships report ready, Commander," said his weapons officer. "Fire!" Zakthul roared. 50 ships unleashed their fury at once. Beams of pure energy, missiles that could phase through solid matter, and weapons that warped space itself all streaked toward the giant alien ship. Zakthul watched the weapons approach their target, expecting to see the massive vessel torn apart by the combined firepower of his fleet. Instead, he watched something impossible happen. Every shot passed harmlessly through the alien ship. Energy beams, missiles, quantum warheads, all of them went through the massive vessel as if it was not there at all. Not one weapon found its mark. The bridge of the Times Death's Edge Times fell silent except for the humming of computers. "Weapons officer," Zakthul said slowly, "did any of our shots hit the target?" "No, sir," came the shaky reply. "All weapons passed through the alien vessel. It's as if they exist in a different dimension." The alien voice spoke again, and this time there was disappointment in its tone. "Fleet Commander Zakthul, you have fired upon a peaceful vessel without provocation. This action will be reported to your government. We hope they are wiser than their military commanders." Zakthul felt fear creep into his heart for the first time in decades. "What are you?" he whispered. "We are the Watchers," the voice replied. "We have guarded this galaxy since before your species learned to speak. We have protected you from threats you cannot imagine, guided your development from the shadows, and watched over your children as they took their first steps among the stars." The massive ship began to move toward the hegemony fleet. It did not fire weapons or make threatening gestures. It simply approached, and somehow that was more terrifying than any show of force. "Your species has threatened one of our protected children," the voice continued. "The humans you wish to enslave are our descendants. They carry the blood of the first star travelers, the builders of the ancient cities, the shepherds of young civilizations." Zakthul's mind reeled. The humans? Those primitive creatures with their tiny ships and chemical weapons? This was impossible. "You lie," he said. "The humans have only been in space for 3 centuries. Our records show, your records show what we allowed you to see," the voice interrupted. "Do you think your civilization discovered space travel on its own? Do you think your species learned to split the atom without guidance? Every young race receives help when they are ready. The question is whether they use that help to build or to destroy." Around the hegemony fleet, more massive shapes began to decloak. One by one, ancient ships revealed themselves. They were all different sizes and designs, but they shared the same impossible age, the same aura of vast power held in check. "How many of you are there?" Zakthul asked. "Enough," was the simple reply. "We have ships positioned near every hegemony world, every council member's homeworld, every major population center in the galaxy. We are not here to conquer. We are here to remind you that there are older powers than yours, and that some lines should not be crossed." One of Zakthul's officers leaned over to whisper in his ear, "Commander, we're receiving similar reports from fleets throughout hegemony space. These ships have appeared everywhere at once. High Command is in chaos." Zakthul slumped in his command chair. In one moment, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had been turned upside down. The hegemony was not the strongest power in space. These humans were not helpless primitives, and somewhere in the darkness, ancient guardians had been watching, waiting, protecting. "What do you want?" he asked. "Peace," the voice replied. "Return to your worlds. Tell your leaders that the children of Earth are under our protection. Harm them, and you will answer to us. Help them, and you will have our gratitude. Choose wisely, Fleet Commander. Your species' future depends on the choices you make in the coming days." The massive ships began to fade from sight, returning to whatever dimension they used to hide from normal sensors. But their message was clear. The galaxy had new rules now, and the oldest power in space was finally awake. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full of fear. Emergency sessions were rare, but this one had been called after reports came in from across the galaxy. Ancient ships had appeared near every major world, ships that defied every known law of physics and military strategy. Elena Vasquez sat in the same chair as before, but now the aliens looked at her with different eyes: fear, respect, suspicion, and wonder, all mixed together as 12 different species tried to understand what humanity really was. Council Speaker Mordain floated above the center table, his jellyfish-like body pulsing with nervous energy. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said in his bubbling voice, "your people have much to explain. These ships, where did they come from?" Elena looked around the chamber at faces that had dismissed humanity just hours before. Thrixak sat rigid in his chair, his insect features unreadable. The Hegemony Fleet Commander had sent a full report of his encounter, and it had shaken the warlike species to their core. "They came from where they have always been," Elena said calmly. "Watching. Waiting. Protecting." Veltar, the crystalline being, shifted colors rapidly as she spoke. In her species, this meant deep confusion. "But our historical records go back 25,000 years. We have found no trace of such an advanced civilization." "That is because they did not want to be found," Elena replied. "My ancestors were very good at staying hidden when they needed to." High Researcher Keln of the Wanderer race leaned forward. His metal body reflected the chamber's lights as he accessed his people's vast databases. "I have been reviewing our oldest archaeological sites. There are anomalies, structures that should not exist, materials that predate our understanding of their world's formation." Elena nodded. "Your people were given their first metals by teachers you called the Sky Singers. You thought they were myths." The metal being's optical sensors flashed in surprise. "The Sky Singers are mentioned in our oldest legends, but they are just stories. Tales of beings who taught us to work metal and reach for the stars." "Your legends also say they came from beyond the rim of the galaxy," Elena said, "and that they promised to watch over your children until you could watch over yourselves." Keln was silent for a long moment as he processed this information. "You are saying that these Sky Singers were human?" "The first humans, yes. Just as the Firebringers who taught the Zephyrians about energy manipulation were human, and the Void Dancers who showed the Kalari how to navigate between stars." Around the chamber, representatives began accessing their own historical databases. Ancient myths and legends that had been dismissed as primitive stories suddenly took on new meaning. The Kalari delegate, a tall blue-furred being named Shalin, spoke with wonder in her voice. The Void Dancers. Our oldest songs speak of them. They were said to appear when our people were trapped on our dying homeworld, and they showed us the paths between stars that would lead us to safety. 57,000 years ago, Elena confirmed. Your sun was beginning to expand, and your people had not yet developed space travel. The Watchers intervened to save your species. Thrixak finally broke his silence. His clicking voice carried a mixture of anger and amazement. If your people were so powerful, why did they hide? Why allow us to develop our own civilizations? Why not simply rule the galaxy? Elena's expression grew sad. Because ruling was never the goal. My ancestors learned early that forced advancement leads to weakness. A species that is given everything will never develop the strength to survive on its own. Better to guide from the shadows, to help when necessary, but to let each race find its own path. But something went wrong, said Mordain. What happened to this first human empire? Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. The galaxy is vast, and it contains more than just the civilizations we know. Beyond the rim, in the space between galaxies, there are other things. Older things. My ancestors encountered one of them 65,000 years ago. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background humming of the station's systems seemed to fade away. It was a force of pure consumption, Elena continued. Something that devoured entire galaxies, leaving nothing but empty space behind. It had already destroyed 3 neighboring galaxies and was heading for ours. The first human empire had a choice. They could gather their full strength to fight this threat, or they could try to protect themselves while the galaxy was consumed. They chose to fight, whispered Shalin. They chose to fight. Elena agreed. But they knew the cost. To have any chance against such a threat, they would need to use weapons that could crack the foundations of reality itself. The war that followed lasted 1,000 years and left the galaxy scarred in ways that still affect space-time today. Veltar's crystalline body turned deep purple. The dark zones. The regions of space where ships disappear and physics behave strangely. Those are battle scars? Some of them, Elena said. The war was eventually won, but at a terrible cost. Most of the first human worlds were destroyed. Their population was reduced from trillions to millions. They realized that their time as active guardians was over, so they went into hiding, said Keln. Some did. Others chose to start over. They scattered across the galaxy, settling on primitive worlds and blending with early human populations. They became the ancestors of modern humanity, carrying fragments of their knowledge in myths and stories. Elena stood and walked to the center of the chamber. For 50,000 years, the Watchers have slept while the galaxy rebuilt itself. They watched as new civilizations emerged, as young species took their first steps into space. They intervened only when necessary, always from the shadows, always carefully, always with the goal of preserving rather than controlling. Thrixak's mandibles clicked nervously. And now they wake because of our actions? They wake because their children are threatened, Elena said firmly. Modern humanity may seem primitive to you, but they carry the blood and dreams of the first star builders. When you voted to place them under alien protection, you crossed a line that has been respected for millennia. The hegemony representative shifted uncomfortably. We meant no harm. We simply believed humans needed guidance. Every species needs guidance, Elena replied, but guidance freely given is different from control forcibly imposed. The Watchers have spent 50,000 years learning the difference. Perhaps it is time the younger races learned it as well. Mordain floated higher, his bioluminescent patches flashing in what his species used for formal communication. Ambassador Vasquez, what do your people want from us? Elena smiled for the second time since entering the chamber. What we have always wanted. To let each species find its own path to the stars. To offer help when it is needed and asked for, to protect the young from those who would exploit them, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. She looked around the chamber at each representative in turn. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders. There is room for all of us to grow and thrive. But growth requires respect. And respect requires understanding that some powers are older than they appear. Outside the station, invisible in the darkness between stars, ancient ships continued their silent watch. The galaxy was changing once again. But this time, its oldest guardians were awake to see it happen. 3 days after the emergency council session, Admiral Sarah Chen received a message that chilled her blood. "Admiral, this is Monitor Station 7, came the voice through her communication system. "We have detected a rogue hegemony battle group moving toward Earth, 50 ships, led by someone called War Master Vector. Intelligence suggests they believe destroying Earth will shut down the Watcher fleet." Sarah closed her eyes and sighed. She had hoped the hegemony leadership would be smarter than this. But there were always those who chose violence when they could not accept change. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked. 18 hours at their current speed. "Admiral, are our people evacuated? All non-essential personnel are off-world. The Watchers are spread throughout the galaxy watching over Council worlds. We have maybe 6 ships close enough to help defend Earth. 6 ships against 50. Under normal circumstances, it would be a slaughter. But Earth was not normal circumstances. Earth was the homeworld. The place where humanity had been reborn after the ancient catastrophe, and the first humans had made very sure their children would never be defenseless. "Monitor Station 7, activate all surface defenses. Send word to the Watcher fleet about what's happening." And Sarah paused, thinking about orders that had been passed down through 50,000 years. "Activate Protocol 7. There was silence on the other end of the communication. Protocol 7 was legendary among the 12 Guardian families. It had never been used. Not once in all the millennia since it was established. "Admiral, are you certain? Once Protocol 7 is activated, there's no hiding what Earth really is. War Master Vector has made the choice for us," Sarah replied. "If he wants to threaten the homeworld, he's about to learn why that was a very bad idea." High above Earth, something that had been sleeping for 50,000 years began to wake up. War Master Vector stood on the bridge of his flagship Times, Queen's Vengeance Times, and studied the primitive blue planet ahead. Earth looked helpless, defended by only a few small human ships and some orbital stations. The planet's moon hung nearby, a gray ball of rock that posed no threat to his mighty fleet. "Scan the system," he ordered his sensor operator. "I want to know about every ship, every station, every piece of debris." Vector had not been part of the official hegemony response to the Watcher revelation. While his government spoke of peaceful solutions and diplomatic talks, he had gathered loyal captains who believed the only good solution was a military one. If these ancient humans wanted to threaten the hegemony, they would learn the price of challenging the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Sir," said his sensor officer, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's moon." Vector glanced at the moon on his screen. It looked like any other dead rock. "What kind of readings?" "Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match anything in our database. It's almost like the moon is hollow? Impossible. Natural moons don't work that way. Keep scanning." The human defense ships were moving into position now. 6 small vessels against his 50 mighty warships. Vector almost felt sorry for them. They were brave. He would give them that. Foolish, but brave. "All ships, prepare for assault," he commanded. "Target the human ships first, then the orbital stations. Once space is clear, we begin bombardment of the planet's surface." "War Master," came a transmission from one of his captains. "We're receiving a communication from the human fleet. They're asking us to withdraw." Vector laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "Tell them they can surrender if they want. Otherwise, they can die with their homeworld." The human response came quickly. "War Master Vector, you are making a mistake that will cost your species dearly. This is your last chance to withdraw." Begin the attack," Vector roared. The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human ships, lighting up space with deadly fireworks. The humans fought back bravely, but they were outnumbered more than 8 to 1. Within minutes, 3 human ships were destroyed, and the others were badly damaged. Vector felt satisfaction as he watched the primitive humans fall before hegemony power. Now nothing stood between his fleet and the planet's surface. Earth would burn, and with it, any hope these ancient humans had of threatening his people. Target population centers, he ordered. Let's end this quickly. But as his ships turned toward Earth, something impossible happened. The moon began to change. What had looked like solid rock started to shift and flow like liquid metal. Massive sections of the moon's surface opened up, revealing structures underneath that gleamed with the same strange metal as the Watcher ships. The gray, dead rock had been nothing but a shell, hiding something far more dangerous beneath. "Sir," screamed his sensor officer, "the moon it's not a moon at all. It's some kind of massive space station." Vector stared in horror as the truth was revealed. The moon unfolded like a flower, its rocky surface falling away to reveal a construction that dwarfed even the largest Watcher ships. Ancient weapons the size of city blocks emerged from hidden bays. Energy shields that could protect entire continents flickered to life around Earth. A new voice came over the communication system, speaking in a language so old it seemed to carry the weight of geological epochs. "War Master Vector, this is Guardian Station Luna. You have threatened the homeworld of the first star builders. Your ships will be disabled. Your crews will be unharmed. Your government will be contacted. This is not a negotiation." "Impossible!" Vector shouted. "Fire everything! Destroy that thing!" His fleet unleashed its full power at the false moon, but their weapons had no more effect than raindrops on a mountain. The ancient station's shields absorbed every shot without even flickering. Then Guardian Luna fired back. The weapons that emerged from the station didn't destroy the hegemony ships. Instead, they reached into the very quantum structure of their hulls and simply turned off their ability to function. Engines stopped. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. Within seconds, 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had been reduced to helpless metal shells floating in space. "This is Guardian Luna to all hegemony vessels," the ancient voice continued. "Your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are safe but contained. You will remain here until your government sends representatives to discuss your future." Vector slumped in his command chair, all his arrogance drained away. Around him, his crew stared in shock at instrument panels that no longer responded to their commands. "How?" he whispered. "The homeworld has been protected since before your species learned to walk upright," came the reply. "Earth's Guardian has watched over this system for 50,000 years, ensuring that no threat could ever reach the children of the first star builders. You have seen only a fraction of its power." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy learned a new truth. Earth was not just the homeworld of an ancient civilization, it was their greatest fortress, their ultimate sanctuary, and their final gift to their descendants. The moon that astronomers had studied for centuries was actually the most powerful Guardian station ever built. Elena Vasquez met with the Galactic Council one final time, but now the meeting was held on Luna Station, in chambers carved from the living rock of humanity's greatest secret. The alien representatives who had once dismissed humanity now sat in respectful silence as they gazed through viewports at the Earth below. "The offer of council membership still stands," Mordain said quietly, "though I suspect the terms have changed somewhat." Elena smiled. "Humanity accepts membership in the Galactic Council as equals among equals. We also accept our ancient role as guardians of young civilizations. But we will not rule. We will guide, protect, and help, but never control." She gestured toward the viewport where Earth hung like a blue jewel in space. "The galaxy is vast and full of life. There is room for all of us to grow, to explore, to become more than we ever dreamed. But growth requires wisdom, and wisdom sometimes requires remembering that the universe is older than any of us know." In the months that followed, humanity took its place in galactic civilization not as conquerors or rulers, but as the guardians they had always been. Young species throughout the galaxy began receiving help from mysterious benefactors. Pre-spaceflight civilizations found their development guided by subtle hands, and in the darkness between stars, ancient ships continued their eternal watch. The hegemony, chastened by their defeat, became some of humanity's strongest allies. War Master Vector, after spending a month as a guest aboard Guardian Luna, returned to his people with a new understanding of what true strength meant. And on distant worlds, in star systems that had never heard of Earth or the Galactic Council, young civilizations looked up at their night skies and began to dream of reaching for the stars. They had no idea that ancient guardians watched over them, ensuring they would have the chance to make those dreams come true. The galaxy was older than it seemed, and more protected than it knew. And in the silent spaces between worlds, humanity's first gift to their descendants continued its endless vigil, watching over all life with the patient love of parents for their children.